Howdy, howdy. Welcome on into the pre-show before the free show. And Miss Pickle is wearing a pretty red sweater. She looks like Christmas, even though Christmas is...
It's always Christmas in my heart. Is that okay?
Oh, yeah, that's okay. I like that.
How cheesy can we get here? Well,
we're very cheesy.
The cheese level needs to be amplified because sitting next to me is a man who probably hates cheesiness. So, welcome in, Mike Craven.
Yo!
Lactose intolerant.
Yeah, exactly.
In real life and in personality.
Okay, so extra cheese it is. Order it up, dude. Craven's on because we're gonna talk some college football in the actual show. But I believe you had a pre-show topic.
I did. So if you guys don't know, around here we are huge sneakerheads. I feel intimidated when I'm around you guys because you guys have fantastic sneakers. So that's one of our favorite things to talk about is sneakers. So.
Well, one is because you have some fresh kicks on right now.
I do. I wish I could show them to you guys, but, well.
You can, stand up. Oh, yeah, there you go.
It is.
And I got to show the other one, too.
Yeah.
So, those are fresh.
Yeah.
Birthday
that's why
gift?
I wanted to talk about, that's why I wanted to talk about sneakers is because I was wearing some cool ones. But I just wanted to get you guys' opinion on, what are your favorite kind of sneakers? Of course, there's a bunch of them, but, your go-to sneakers. Maybe some that you'd wear at State, because I know that at State we wear.
I love me a good pair of Air Maxes.
Yeah.
Air Maxes will never not. Mainly, I'll tell you this, because they are, one, fashionable.
Yeah.
Two, they're comfortable. They're legit shoes that you can go walk around in for a day and still look fresh. I love Air Maxes.
Right.
That's Air Maxes are what made me fall in love with shoes.
Yeah.
Honestly, the Air Max 90, Air Max 95. I'm a Jordan 4 guy. I think Jordan 4s are probably the best Jordans.
I agree.
But Allen Iverson's answer shoe when I was I think 10 or 11 was the sneaker that made me fall in love with basketball shoes.
Right.
The Reebok. They're hard to find now in the real colorway that they have. But yeah, that was the shoe that made me fall in love with Allen Iverson. The answers, because Allen Iverson was my favorite basketball player.
Oh yeah.
And so that was what made the turn for me. And then it became. I think why sneakers are big now is because people my age have disposable income.
Right.
You see baseball cards coming back to life, sneakers, wrestling, professional wrestling.
Right.
Because kids from the 90s like me who grew up with that stuff, whose dad was like, I'm not buying you
you don't need.
shoes.
Yeah.
You're saying your foot's going to grow in the next month. We now have our own money and are like, I'm going to go buy
You know whose
shoes.
feet are not
Right.
growing?
I wanted these when I was 10. My dad said no, and I'm going to get them now.
Yeah. I wore two different kinds of pairs of Air Maxes to State, and that was the best decision that I ever did because they're
comfortable.
So comfortable. And now we're not really on our feet a lot, not nearly as much as ops and the sales guys are because we're up in the booth and stuff. But when we're walking between the booth and going down onto the field to talk to people, you got to wear comfortable shoes.
4 days of a lot of here to there, up, down.
Right. So yeah, I like the Air Maxes a lot. Of course, the J's. My pair of J's.
I will say, I think the most comfortable shoe for me is the Boost. Adidas Boost. In terms of just walking around, living life.
Yeah.
I'm probably in I'm in Boost right now.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know we were doing the sneaker conversation.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, I'm over here in my basic white girl boots. Usually I wear cool shoes to the office.
Yeah, I got boots.
Let's see your boots. Let's see your boots.
There's my basic white girl,
I think I won this today.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
No, it's one of those things, man, when it gets cold outside, sometimes it's man, I love wearing the kicks, but being able to wear warm socks in these boots, you really can't beat it.
Right. I think I won.
Well, and the other thing was
you're winning today.
Oh, yeah,
Thank you.
absolutely. Hardcore.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I have a big foot.
I do.
We both actually have big feet for women.
Yeah.
And so my mom would always say that with the shoes. She was like, why do you want new shoes all the time? And I was like, I'm telling you, it started off from when I was a kid. I got new shoes all the time because my feet grew so big. The one thing, and this is a horror story, I think I've told you all this before, but when I was in first grade is when light up shoes really got to be big. Yeah. So I went to first grade
because they were big. They were big in the late 80s before your time.
Yeah, exactly. So when I was in first grade, that's when the resurgence of light up shoes really started to hit, and all the girls had light up shoes. I was already in a women's size 6 at that point. I'm talking boat feet. They didn't make women's light up shoes. Now they do. Now they have some. Teachers will wear it. My mom, she works at an elementary school, so she's like, hell yeah, I'll rep
Yeah.
light up shoes. You
Yeah.
know, like the kids will love it. But I never got light up shoes because
Your feet
I
were
already
just
had
too.
skis, and so
Yeah.
I was in like normal, Walmart brand ladies shoes,
Yeah.
and it was, oh man,
Do you guys
scarred.
Do you guys remember Heelys?
Oh
the,
yeah,
the tennis shoes with the wheels in them.
Yeah.
We those became popular when I was in elementary school, and there was one Christmas where just the entire 6th grade got them for Christmas, right? And they banned the wheel. So you could wear the shoe. The shoe was all right, I guess.
It was an
but
ugly
it's,
shoe.
It's nothing without that little wheel
You
at
need
the
the
bottom.
wheel.
So everybody would wear their little Heelys without the heel, but you got the Heelys so you could glide
Oh,
to
yeah.
class, So
Speaking
I
of
miss
shoes
those.
that were like the growing of the size, this is a true story. I didn't really know what my shoe size was until I was like 22 or 23 years old. Because my dad would always force me to buy a half size up.
Right.
Yeah, because then they fit
Right, 'cause
longer.
they would
Yeah.
fit longer. They would last the whole school year instead of just the first semester of school. And so, like, when I was like 21, 22, I realized, like, I'm not a size 12.
Oh.
I can
dumb it
I
down.
can go back. My foot's probably done growing. I think I'm just going to settle in at like an 11, you
Yeah,
know? And I
that's funny.
would mess with them and be like, Dad, do you know how much better of an athlete I would have been
Had I had
like,
shoes that fit?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like that 4'8" becomes a 4'6" if
Six,
you're in
yeah.
the right pair of shoes.
Well, and it was always the bent down and okay, stand there, and you had to stand straight so your mom could mash your toe down, and it was always like, okay, we've got like half a thumb length to go, we're good.
Exactly.
Yeah, you need the top of your thumb.
Yeah, oh
That's-
yeah,
That was our
exactly.
rule. Like you needed that.
You
that
needed
little
that
part of
much.
your thumb.
And then
Yeah.
too, when you were real little, it was look how much faster I can run, and so you're in
yeah.
Walmart going,
With your light up
timing your
sneakers.
40 down the no, not my
Well,
light-up
not
sneak-
your light up sneakers, maybe mine light up.
Okay,
sneakers.
now that you're bringing up bad memories, go ahead and hit the theme expo. Yes, y'all, from the Dave Campbell's Texas Football Mothership here in beautiful Lewisville, Texas. It is Texas Football Today, a show on the internet. Thank you for spending part of your day with us. I am Ashley Pickle, the video director for Dave Campbell's Texas Football, a magazine, and TexasFootball.com, a corresponding website. This is when I'm supposed to thank you for spending part of your day with us, regardless. Whether you're watching us on TexasFootball.com, on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitch, or listening to us on the podcast, which you can subscribe to on the podcast vendor of your choice, thank you for supporting your local mediocre internet show. I am sitting here. To my right is our college football insider, Mike Craven. Howdy, sir.
That was a tremendous intro.
Oh, thank you.
I don't know
That
how
was a
you keep all that in your head.
Head.
And don't fumble across it. Like it
It's-
confused me as it was happening.
It's because she sits there with Tepper 24/7.
Yeah,
so
usually
he
After
gets
like
stuck
2
in her
years
head.
of
So
listening to Tep do that exact thing, it just kind of I'm sure I wake up in the middle of the night going, "Thank you for supporting your local mediocre internet show." Sitting over there at the helm, it's the lady running the ship for the past couple weeks, Mallory Hartley. How are you, Mal Pal?
I am doing well. Happy to be here as always.
Today is Thursday, January 6th, 322 days until Thanksgiving. January 6th, the birthday of Rowan Atkinson. Does anybody know who that is?
No idea.
Mr. Bean. Bean?
Yeah.
Anybody? No? Oh, no.
Craven looks lost.
We always send the bean meme. That's
Yeah.
hard to say. Bean meme in our group text because it'll be the one where he goes,
It's so funny. That dude is so funny.
He's
looking,
so
too.
good.
But he's so good. He's such a great actor.
Mhm.
Like in that Bean movie. What is it, Mr. Bean's?
Bean something
Holiday?
I don't know. It's
I don't know.
great.
Great actor.
Objectively fantastic. Happy birthday, Mr. Bean. This is episode 1308. On today's show, my friends, we will start off with the first of our college football postmortems where we go through each of the 12 FBS teams and go through, give them grades, take a look at every aspect. Today, we're going to be doing the Rice Owls hoot. That's why Craven is joining us. And then in the back half of the show, we will talk with the Frisco Wakeland head coach, Marty Secord, and their unbelievable season that they have. You might remember him beating Highland Park there in the area round. So we are super excited to welcome him on and talk about that fantastic season. But before we get there, Malpow, do we have first four through the door?
We sure do. It was Rob Hadaway, Daniel Agnew, Jake McNeil, and Aaron Arbuckle. Welcome in, fellas.
Welcome in, friends. All right, since this is college football and this is y'all's world, I'm going to be kind of the timekeeper here, but we're going to let Malpal kind of take the helm here in running this segment. So it's time for our 2021 Rice football postmortem. So with that, we turn the hooting over to the lady at the computer.
Hoot, hoot. Now, we do these in a different order every single year. This is my first year doing these postmortems, so I decided that we're going to kind of go from the ground up. Now, in our rankings, Rice is second to last, but since we'll have Ish on next week, and of course Ish is a known Texas State graduate, we'll do Texas State next week instead. But we'll go ahead and start off with our offensive grade. Now, we kind of talked about the offense beforehand a little bit, and we're going to give them a C, an overall grade of C. Craven, you want to take it away?
Yeah, I mean, they only scored 21.5 points a game. They averaged under 4 yards a rush. You know, as a team, they only had one runner, average over 4 yards a rush. So it was a tough year for Rice. Now, I have a hard time grading Rice's offense negatively because that's an institution that's going to have a hard time recruiting, like, playmakers.
Right.
You know, they're never going to have that explosive offense or score 40 points. Jake Bailey was really good. They just didn't have any consistency from the quarterback. They started 3 different quarterbacks over their first 4 games because of injuries.
Right.
And that kind of trickled throughout the year. Sometimes it was McCaffrey. Sometimes it was Green. Jake Constantine played really well down the stretch. So I thought the offense played better the last month of the year because they finally got some consistency and they finally had a quarterback that was able to play multiple games. But a really tough start on that side of the ball, and they're going to have to get better at the offensive line because at Rice, you need to run the football. Mm-hmm. You're just not going to spread the ball out and have all these wide receivers, and that's just not how Rice is going to be able to recruit. You have to be able to run the football. The best Rice teams can run the football, and this one just didn't really. Ari Broussard had a good year, but other than that, it was a pretty tough go offensive line-wise and then the running game.
Yeah, I was going to say the offensive line is where I was most disappointed because it's one of those things. Sometimes they do a pretty good job. I mean, they always have good size up front and everything like that, but it's never – it was awful. It was really bad. I guess too, real fast, I should have done this from the beginning, but Rice this season had a record of 4-8 in Mike Bloomgren's first year. So he's gone since 2018, 2-11, 3-9, 2-3 in that just a wild season last year, and then 4-8. So technically, the most wins under Bloomgren so far.
And I'm curious how much last year hurt Rice this year.
Yeah.
You know, like, because everybody had a weird season last year, but Rice only played 5 games.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And so how much did that impact kind of what they were doing along the offensive line, defensive line? Was that just kind of a lost year even behind the scenes in the weight room? So, yeah, just a tough go for Rice offensively this year because of injuries and consistency. They had a lot of penalties, too.
Oh,
for
yeah.
a Rice team. They averaged like 7.4 penalties a game, something like that. So a lot of penalties for Rice this year. It was just a weird year. But then you look at the record, they were 2 overtime losses away from being 6-6.
Exactly. I was going to say, I mean, they almost beat North Texas in overtime.
Yeah.
Charlotte. I think Charlotte, that final score to that Arkansas game, it was like 38-17, but I mean it was close for a while, right? They really played
going in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, they played hard and
9-4 UAB.
I was going to say that was my next one. They beat UAB, so that's why I decided to give them an overall grading of a C rather than a D because I think they played as hard as they could have. You know, switching between 4 different quarterbacks, it can be kind of difficult. So, with that being said, we'll go ahead and move on to our defensive grade of the season, and we have decided to give them a D because it's just not good. It was not good.
To me, that was the most important or the most disappointing part of Rice's football. Like what we talked about earlier, I don't expect Rice to have this explosive offense, but I expect them to play solid, fundamental, sound defense, and they just didn't do that this year. They gave up 36.17 points per game, which is insane. The red zone defense is where it's really bad. So the opponents got into the red zone 59 times against Rice. They scored 50 of those times.
Ugh.
I mean, that's
not a math major, but is not good.
Yeah.
Now, conversely, Rice only got into the red zone 38 times.
Right.
And so it was just one of those things where you add in the turnovers, you add in the offense maybe not being as consistent as they needed to be. And the defense, really, they were just atrocious. They just were not very good defensively. And that's where Rice needs to be good. They should be good, like you said, along the offensive line. They should be able to run the football. And they should play, like, sound defense. They're not going to have the athletes maybe that everybody else has, but they should play fundamental sound defense, and they didn't do that throughout the year.
Well, and you always take a look at this, and it's one of those things you say, okay, well, they're spending a ton of time out there on the field because the offense isn't getting anything going, which, yes, inherently is true. But on the other side of that, I mean, from the get-go, it doesn't, that starts becoming an excuse in the second half once you've been out there for a long time, once you're tired. This was right off the start. I mean, it was people torching them down low. They couldn't stop the run defense, or they didn't have any run defense. They didn't have any help in the backfield, and that's where it seems like they always struggle a little bit. They need to have some they need to recruit heavy on the linebacker position because they really, really need the help up front.
Yeah, and I'm thinking if this defense was just a little bit better, that they could have that 6-6 record.
Absolutely.
And it's really sad.
I mean, if they gave up 28 points a game, they'd be 6-6, 7-5. If you look at their schedule. Even down the stretch, they gave up over 30 points the last 7 games of the season. So you give up 58 to Texas, that's understandable. Right. You give up 44 to Houston, and nobody's going to fault you for that. But in Conference USA games down the stretch, they gave up over 30 in 7 of the last 7 games. And so just not a good showing for Rice defensively. And that's the part that needs to improve the most. And that's with Elijah Garcia being really good.
Right, yeah.
He was a first-team All-Conference USA guy. He was on our All-State team for Dave Campbell's. Elijah Garcia was really good, and they still couldn't really figure out what to do and how to get stops when they needed to. And that's how you lose close games. When you can't get off the field, you're just not going to win those close games, and they weren't able to do that.
Yeah. We're going to move on to our team MVP. We've already mentioned his name once, but we'll mention it again. Jake Bailey, the wide receiver. And I like this guy too because we've talked about it before. They just had so much inconsistency at that quarterback position, but that one he was the kind of the constant out of all of them. No matter who you put at that quarterback position, he was able to perform, and I think that's a big reason why we're giving Jake Bailey the team MVP.
I have a stat for you. Rice completed 204 passes this year, 56 of them to Jake Bailey. So he accounted for about 27% of every reception, and that just goes to show how one-dimensional Rice was.
Right.
They just didn't have the plethora of weapons that you need in a modern offense. You can't just have one wide receiver, right? You're going to blanket coverage. You can double guys. You can take somebody away when there's only one guy. They're going to have to find more weapons next year. But the good news for Rice is Bailey's a sophomore. And he's going to be good for the next couple of years.
Right, and so that goes exactly back to what you were saying about just the consistency of the quarterback position, because when Jake Constantine was healthy and they finally looked like they were getting a little momentum going there, that is a really good duo that you can use, you can score with it. So it's like, man, there was so many that fell apart between those two not being able to be on the field enough together.
Yeah.
And the lack of running.
Right. Well, we'll go ahead and move on to our last part of our postmortems, and that's going to be the expectations that we have for this Rice program heading into the 2022 season. They've already signed 11 guys during the early signing period. Do you have any known targets that you know of they're going to maybe sign when National Signing Day comes around?
Well, I think that's just gotten so hard.
It's hard to recruit down there, yeah.
It's hard to recruit, and other teams can go and address needs through the transfer portal. Well, Rice has a really hard time going into the transfer portal because who can transfer to Rice?
Yeah.
Academically speaking, you have to. There are regulations.
Stanford got a transfer signee today to commit from OU, and that's only the 3rd transfer to Stanford in David Shaw's whole history at Stanford. And Rice is similar to that academics-wise. And so you can't go into the transfer portal and be like, oh, you didn't work out here? Well, come to Rice and play.
Right.
Because you're not going to get in, most likely.
Right.
And so I do think it's hard to project Rice, maybe harder than the other schools because you just don't know who they can get and who they can go sign. But they do have a pretty young roster. Only one of their offensive linemen was a senior. Like we just talked about, Jake Bailey, a sophomore. Wiley Green, who I think is their best quarterback talent-wise on the roster, will be back. And if he can stay healthy, I think that gives them an added dimension there. And you hope that defense grows up. And so with Rice, we should never have these expectations of 10-win seasons, Conference USA championship. Get to 6 wins.
Right. Make a bowl
That's
game.
the starting
get to
point.
bowl eligibility, and then the recruiting picks up. Then you get some more transfers. Then all that kind of starts coming into play. So I think for Bloomgren, he just needs to get to 6 wins, and if he can keep his team healthy, they can improve defensively, and they can lower on the penalties and the mistakes on special teams. I think Rice could be a team that gets to 6 wins. They're just going to have to do it in Conference USA play because they're always going to lose 3 out of their 4 out of conference games.
Right.
And they always schedule hard.
I was going to say, they schedule hard.
McNeese is really the only winnable game before conference. So now you're asking the team to go 5-3 in conference, and that's a tough ask.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right.
Well, and I love that you brought up the fact earlier when we were talking about, obviously, the 2-3 season was very wild. If you take a look back at the end of that 3-9 season, those last 3 wins, I don't know if y'all remember, were the last 3 games of the season. Mm-hmm. Rice, technically, heading into 2020, was the hottest team in Texas on a 3-game win streak, which is wild to think about.
Right.
But you get that in Bloom's second year, and then the craziness happens in the third year, and this is a program that anyone that comes in has to build it up. You can't, you're not walking into this cushy plush job. You're always walking into the very bottom of the barrel and trying to get something out of it. So the fact that in year 4, after a true offseason with a bunch of young players, that they were able to come in and win 4 games. Yes, one of them's over Texas Southern, which is a team that has turned it around. Shout out to our guy Andrew Body. Regardless, it's one of those things. A win more each year is a realistic goal. You can't overhype it. You can't oversell it. Just keep adding one more year until you get to that bowl eligible Rice team. And with AAC coming up in the greater future,
you're right. They're moving
next
up.
Year's big for them. I think it's also big for Bloom. Do you think he's on the hot seat after next year?
Yeah, I mean, I think he is if he wins 3 or 4 games and they don't improve a little bit. But like, what do you expect at Rice? Like, that's what I have a hard time with that job. Is like, I don't know what the expectations are supposed to be. I don't know if the admin, the alumni base, I don't know if they've ever bought all into what football can do for the university. So you're just kind of there on your own trying to make things work. I do think 6 wins is attainable. Like we were talking about earlier, they beat UAB. They lost a couple games in overtime. Like, they're right there. I mean, there's not a huge separation. Maybe there is between the top of Conference USA and the bottom. Right. But the middle of Conference USA and the bottom of Conference USA is the same thing. And so I think Rice could do what like North Texas did this year, right? Where they start off slow, probably 1-4, 1-5 in that way. But if they can get hot at the end of the year, they can do pretty well. And I just don't know. I don't know how to judge Bloomgren's job and how well he's done or how well he hasn't done, because I don't know what support you get at Rice and like what the upside could possibly even be. Winning 8 games a year at Rice just seems like a fantasy to me.
Yeah, right.
So it's hard for me to be as hard on a coach at Rice as I maybe would be at one at UTSA or Texas State even.
Yeah, because at that point, I mean, you got to win almost every conference game if you're going to go 8-4 or 9-3, and like, obviously you see in Conference USA, that seems a little hard. Well, especially now that they're moving into the AAC, that's going to be even harder to obtain that goal.
I do have one last question before we let you go here. Do you think, and this is totally kind of off the rails a little bit, but do you think that the success that UTEP had this year, and UTEP and Rice have always been, I mean, super comparable. You look at them, you say the same thing of, well, is Dana Dimel's job really on the line, blah, blah, blah. They go out there and they have an unbelievable season this year. Do you think that does start to put maybe a little bit of added pressure of saying, well, shoot, we went from like last to now we're like really last in Texas?
For sure. Like, I do think Rice has always kind of had a little bit of a leg up on UTEP, and so that kept you from being like bottom of the barrel, right? But yeah, if UTEP is improving, UTSA is winning conference championships, North Texas made a bowl game, when all your peers are starting to improve and do better, I think it's natural to look at your school and go, well, look, UTSA's figured it out.
If they can do it, if they can do it in El Paso, we can do it in Houston.
Right. And so I do think there is that natural tendency of like you compare yourself to your peers, and I think those are better measuring marks than maybe we look at in the state. Like, Rice is never going to be Baylor. No. Or Texas Tech even, or Texas or whatever. But they can be UTEP. And so, yeah, I do think that is an important measuring stick where you need to keep up with your peers. And if they're all improving around you, then you not improving is much more noticeable than if they're also not improving.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
If the state of Texas is going to get better at like that level, right, if the Conference USA teams in the state are all getting better, that does put an emphasis on Rice to also improve and to not have the excuses that maybe we've given them in the past.
Completely agree. Anything else, Malpal?
No, that was it, I think.
All right.
Good.
Well, there we
Breakdown.
go. Our 2021, the first of the 12 college football postmortems that we'll do. We'll continue to do them week in and week out, but we're going to start off there with the Rice Owls hoot hoot. Craven, thanks for joining us, bud.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thanks for being here.
We are Texas Football. Today we're here every weekday at noon talking football in the Lone Star State. We hope that you will consider becoming a Dave Campbell's Texas Football subscriber. And I had put this over here yesterday, so we'll bring it up again. But if you become a Dave Campbell's Texas Football subscriber at texasfootball.com, you will get this beautiful Texas Football Rising Recruiting Guide mailed directly to you. I mean, we've got over 400 recruits listed in this thing. Of course, that's Denver Harris from North Shore on the cover there. But yeah, if you go ahead and go to texasfootball.com/subscribe, we will be able to send you one of those. And it's like the Jelly of the Month Club. It's the gift that keeps on giving, with online content all throughout the year. All right, Malpal, let's head on over to the hotline as we welcome in the head coach of Frisco Wakeland. It is Coach Marty Secord. Coach, how are you?
I'm doing well, thank you.
How are things in beautiful Frisco, Texas?
I tell you, it's pretty windy today. Everybody in the Metroplex is feeling it. You go out there and it chills you to the bone. So glad we don't have a game tonight.
No kidding. And it's only going to get colder, so no fun there. But, Coach, I mean, first off, man, congratulations on an unbelievable season. Y'all went 9-3. You know, you make it to the third round of the playoffs. Those dummies over at Dave Campbell's Texas Football, we had you picked to finish 6th in your district before the season started. So I've got to ask you, as the guy that was able to see how the offseason went for you guys, in August, would you have thought that this team had that caliber to be able to have the season that you had?
Oh, absolutely. Without question. I had no doubt. I really mean that sincerely because I go back to last November when it all started after the playoffs ended for us and got back in the weight room and out on the fields and just able to get started with them. And it was a group that just had a great commitment, and we just had to get the pieces in the right place. And we knew we were better than 6th, and so our kids worked with that motivation every day, and I appreciate those who gave it to us.
Well, we are glad to be able to provide at least a little something there.
Sure.
But was there, throughout the season, obviously you knew the squad that you had. You knew that they were capable of doing it, but is there a point that you can go back and pinpoint in the middle of the season of going, oh man, we're doing it?
Yeah, and you know, we had so much adversity to overcome. We didn't even get to play our first game against Sulphur Springs with the COVID things, and then my wife and I were both out. I had a heart attack during the season. It was wild. I mean, I just and that's just speaking on a personal note, but you know, God took care of us, and the kids continue to work, the coaches continue to work, and we just knew we had some good senior leadership and that we had a good running back and a good young quarterback that was going to come along and some experience up front. And we knew we had a good defense. You know, our defensive line, I felt like, was one of the better defensive lines in the area and one of the best in the state. And then we had some guys that just stepped it up in the secondary and at linebacker, and all that, you know, made a difference. And the key was just their attitude, you know, towards everything we were doing. And so, you know, I'm going to say that, you know, going into district and, you know, we started out with a big district win, and we just kept getting better, you know, and you could see us taking steps along the way, and the offense was progressing and our defense continued to play well. And we knew if we had those combinations that eventually it would come together. And even in the games we lost in district, I mean, and look at our insane region that we play in. You know, we did lose some of those games that looked like a big margin, but man, we were right there. If we just catch the football in the moments and we get some scores in the red zone, we got down there, but we couldn't score. And so we really started, you know, focusing ourselves on red zone football offensively, and it helped us tremendously. And we were able to get some big wins and get in and make a run.
I want to go back to your defense for a minute because we knew that, I mean, you had 8 returning starters on the defensive side of the ball, that this was going to be the unit that you were able to really rely on while that young offense was able to figure it out. Was that kind of the message to your team heading into the season with those defensive guys of, hey, keep working your tail off, be the unit that we can rely and trust on while this offense kind of picks it up and gets going?
Yeah, I would say that's a fair assessment, you know, because, again, we knew we had some good leadership there, and we had some runners and some hitters that could make plays and get the ball back for the offense. And, you know, our goal was just to create that balance that you're looking for and get your offense to come up to that same level, and then even hopefully at some point surpass it. And I think we peaked at the right time towards the end of the season offensively. And, like I say, our defense played well all year. So, it was a fun group, a great season, and one that you just, feel like was a blessing, and all that you had to overcome. People have no idea, what happens from the inside out, but just a lot of things that, reared its ugly head at times, and we just kept fighting through and pressing on. And the teams we're playing they're not average teams; they're good teams. We play in a great district and a great region, so we knew it would be challenging. But I was just proud of our kids and our coaches for, stepping up each and every week.
And then, obviously, yes, making that trek through Region 2 and everything that brings with you. We got to go back and talk about the game that I'm sure everyone in the Wakeland community will remember for years to come, and that's the Highland Park game in the area around. You win it on a 2-point conversion. The feeling that you had at the end of that game, and you're a guy who's been coaching for a long time, the feeling, is that going to rank up there in one of those top moments of your career?
Well, there's no question about it. I mean, you can't have a win like that and it not mean something to you as a coach and the staff and the team, and as a community and as a high school. I mean, our student body, it was an exciting night, but you'd never been there had you not beaten Woodrow Wilson, a good football team in by district that people, I believe they were underrated, and that was a tough ball game for us. But just to get into the Highland Park game and your kids, believing that you had a great opportunity to win the football game and then making the plays to get that done, that was huge, because, those guys, and as I've said before, I have great respect for Coach Allen, and I worked for him, and I know him well, and what a great program that is, and to be in a position to beat a great team like that was awesome. But, I mean, act like you've been there before too, and we played in some big games, and, so it was just another huge game, but it was a great win, and one that, nobody will ever forget, that's for sure.
We're talking to Frisco Wakeland head coach Marty Secord on Get Involved in the Conversation, #TF today. Coach, the guy who ran in that 2-point conversion in the Highland Park game, your senior running back, Jared White, this was a kid that we knew he was going to be special. He had been a foundation of your offense for quite a few years. Now that his time as a Wolverine is over, what did Jared White mean to this program and to your offense and being a leader?
Well, he was a great leader, no question about it. And just, I mean, you you can't outwork him. And, just every day in the summer and going all the way back again to last winter, he led the way. And you just knew that in that moment, that's who you wanted to, get the ball to. And you knew those kids up front believed in what we were doing and believed that we could move those guys enough to give him an opportunity to get into the end zone. And so, I mean, that was a huge deal. And no doubt Jared's an outstanding young man. I think he's got a great future ahead of him, and it'll be interesting to see where that future takes him.
And talking about another kid on your squad that seems to have a very bright future ahead of him, I want to talk about your sophomore quarterback, Brandon Meyer there. He comes in, he takes over the offense, leads you to an unbelievable season. What did you see from your sophomore quarterback over the course of the season that gives you hope for the great success that you could have in the 2 next years to come?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing I see is leadership skills, and he has all those intangibles. I mean, he's got a great arm. He's just got great instincts. He knows where to go with the football. He studies the game and understands, that he's got to stay within the realm of what we're doing. But, he just makes plays. And you go down there and watch him, and you're around him when he's watching film and trying to get better, and people are working with him, and he takes coaching and just, and then he puts in a lot of additional time himself, just going to camps and working 7-on-7 and doing the things that a quarterback has to do, in our area to be really good, because there's some great quarterbacks around here. But he's definitely going to be a great one, and he's off to a great start. But he knows better than anybody that he's got to he's got to continue with the work, and that's exactly what he'll do. But he's an awesome young man, no question.
And then finally, Coach, I know it's only January, but football coaches never actually shut off their football brains. So I have to ask you, when you're heading into the off season now, and obviously that season is behind you, you're looking forward towards the 2022 season, heading into the off season, what are you seeing that you like and are very excited for the team that'll be rolling around in the 2022 football season?
Well, I see another group of kids. It'll be a new group of kids, but they're working, and they're doing exactly what we ask them to do right now, and just trying to get bigger, faster, stronger, quicker, meaner, and smarter, as we call it, in the game of football. And so coaches are right now. We're talking scheme. We're looking at the clinics we're going to attend. I mean, it does really, truly never end, and you just want to try to play to your strengths. And so we're trying to figure out right now, what will those strengths be, and how do we expand on offense? How do we, replace all those kids on defense? And so it's somebody else's turn, and so we're just trying to get the ones that will play, in the future, ready to go, and hopefully find some surprises. So every high school coach in the state would tell you the same thing, but that's what we're doing. It's the great focus on what are we going to do now.
Absolutely. He's Coach Marty Secord, the head coach of those Frisco Wakeland Wolverines. Coach, congratulations again on just an outstanding season. Y'all were a blast to watch, and hopefully we'll be seeing you around some of those coaching clinics coming up soon. Absolutely.
I appreciate the time today. Thank you.
Thanks, Coach.
There he goes, Frisco Wakeland head coach Marty Goodness gracious. Secord. Man, I must have messed that up 20,000 times. My apologies to Coach.
It's kind of a tongue twister a little bit. Like
yeah.
Marty Secord. You got to say it really quickly or you're going to mess it up.
You got to get it going. But we always appreciate Coach for joining us. And truly, I mean, what he was able to do. We'll tell a funny story here. For those of you who watch the Football Friday show, and I'm just gonna blow him up, put him on the spot. But C.T. Steckel, his stepson played on the squad this year. Mm-hmm. He was a senior, and obviously C.T. doesn't get to go to his games because unless they play on a Thursday night, which luckily in Frisco ISD will happen quite often.
Right.
But if it's a Friday night, he doesn't get to go watch his stepson play football because he's in the Bally Sports Southwest studio. Mm-hmm. So he actually, in that area round playoff game, he took off working the show that weekend to go watch Wakeland play Highland Park because he thought obviously, he knew that Wakeland was a great team and everything, but when you're facing off against the giant, to be the man, you got to beat the man. And it was like, okay, he didn't want to miss his son's last high school football game. Mm-hmm. And since he was a senior, everyone at Bally's was like, absolutely, man, go watch your son play. And he was at that game, and obviously it wasn't the last game, so he watched him go. But I mean, what an exceptional experience for him and his family to be there to watch that win. But we actually had they VCC'd, which is like basically a Skype, in that Skype system that Bally uses. They VCC'd with CT and his stepson at the game that night, so he still got to be on the show and everything. But I mean, that was one of those games that it's going to be like the China Spring Carthage game this year. Everyone's
never going to forget.
Going to remember that, and to do it on a 2-point conversion. And Coach said, there's never a doubt in that moment that you're going to go for it. But just a remarkable season, and really a way for Wakeland to puff out their chest and say, look, Lone Star isn't the only Frisco team that can go far. Frisco High isn't the only one. Wakeland is right there in that contention now, and what a job that Coach Secord had done all season long to get them there.
Right. I was going to say, it's difficult to play in a district where you've got 5, 6, even 7 other high schools, that you compete against. It's really hard to stand out.
Well, they got Denton Ryan in their district.
Right. It's hard to stand out, all these other Frisco schools. So, I mean, them making a name for themselves and just that win against Highland Park, I mean, that's what they're doing. They're standing out.
Yeah, and it's one thing to make it through that district with Denton Ryan, with Lone Star, with all of the teams that are in there. But to then turn around and have to be punched in the mouth again in the playoffs in that region too that is the region of doom when you look at it, with College Station, with Frisco Lone Star, with Denton Ryan. I mean, it's week after week of getting just punched in the mouth, and they went out there and did it. And, like you said, there was a lot of adversity that a lot of people outside the program didn't even know about. So, I mean, just really, truly spectacular what the Wolverines were able to put together. And they've got a young team, and we'll
see what they're
not going to
rank
them sixth this time. So appreciate Coach hopping on and talking with us. All right, Malpal, we're going to head over to the helm for America's favorite segment, Final Thoughts.
Well, we'll do a little bit of a programming note. This is our last show of the week.
Yes.
We are both doing some stuff tomorrow.
Peacing out.
We're taking a little bit of a break. No. But yeah, so we will be back next week. I believe we'll have all 5 days of show next week. Also, I just want to say, I don't know if Mike Craven has ever been on TFT before.
He has.
He has?
Yeah, once or twice, I think.
Well, I was just going to shout him out. He's done a phenomenal job with our college football coverage. He's got a couple pieces out right now. He's got a piece over the new SMU head coach, Rhett Lashley. He also did one over Sonny Dykes, the TCU head coach now. So go ahead and check those out on our website. I know it'd mean a lot to him to do that, but they're just phenomenal pieces. So take the time to read them.
Really appreciate Craven hopping on with us, and of course, if you want more college football talk, check out our podcast, their podcast.
Yes, Republic of Football.
I totally blanked on that. I almost said this week in recruiting. I almost said this week in recruiting, and then I was like,
that one podcast.
No, Grib. That's not what we're talking about today. All right, that's going to do it for us. Thank you for spending part of your day with us. Make sure to like us, facebook.com/Dave Campbell's, youtube.com/Dave Campbell's TF, on Instagram, instagram.com/Dave Campbell's, and of course, follow us on Twitter @DCTF, and see all of our coverage every single day of the year on TexasFootball.com. Thank you to our guest, Mike Craven, our college football insider, to Frisco Wakeland head coach Marty Secord. For Mallory Hartley, I'm Ashley Pickle. Vince Young, please come get your Player of the Year trophy. Again, no show tomorrow, but we will be back on Monday for a full 5 days of shows. We'll see you next week on Texas Football Today.